Hey guys, in this lesson I'm going to show you how to make custom materials, which can include duplicating an existing material and editing it to get properties that we need. So in the last lesson we wound up going into the asset browser, but what if we want to create a material from scratch? Something that's new or that we haven't seen before. So in this example we're going to create a new brick style. So the first thing we'll do is go back up to the Manage tab, and then we'll click on Materials. So we'll do a search for brick, and then we'll select Common Brick, and then the very first thing you want to do is duplicate this brick. If you right-click on it, you'll get a bunch of different options, and you'll select Duplicate from that list. And I'll go ahead and rename this Brick Custom. So right now this custom brick doesn't look any different from the common brick, but we're actually going to go in now and change some values. Also note, you can create a new material or duplicate a selected material from the panel below. So now I'm going to select my custom brick, and I'm going to make the color first a little bit more red. And once we've done that, we'll adjust the fill pattern, and I'm going to give this more of a block pattern. So we can go with one of the pre-made patterns, or we can actually create our own. But note that that's going to be dependent upon your AutoCAD P80 file. So if you have an existing P80 file, you can click New, then click Import, and then you can load in your P80 hatch pattern. So we're not going to go over that in this lesson, but just be aware that you can import any hatch pattern you have from AutoCAD or from any P80 file that you use in any other program. So just be aware that you can import patterns, but you may have to do some editing to get the pattern exactly how you want. You can also create a simple pattern with specified line angles and line spacings, and you can choose parallel lines or cross patterns, and that will allow you to create a brand new simple surface pattern. But actually for this example, I'll stick with the brick pattern, since basically we're designing a new type of brick. As for my cut pattern though, I think I am actually going to change that to something a little bit different. For this, I'll go diagonal up small, so now in cross-section it'll display just a little bit different. Under Appearance, I've got an image chosen, and again, this is under the type Masonry. And actually, this would be a good time to point out that some of the elements under Appearance, Physical, and Thermal might not show up depending upon the material you're using. So if I want to choose a different image, I can click this button next to the image, and then I can click on a source. You can also do it from the main tab. If you click on this link, then you'll see all the different materials that are in your Revit file. But if you want to edit the image itself, you can just click on it, and that'll bring up the texture editor. So I'm going to expand this screen a little bit. So you can see here that we have our sample size, which in this case should correlate to the hatch pattern that you want. So keep that in mind. If we make the sample size 6 feet, actually let's make it even more outrageous. Let's say 10 feet. Then you can see up in that preview window, if that's 10 feet across, that makes each brick about 2 feet. So just remember that the scale of your sample size is going to impact how the texture actually appears. Now on the other hand, if you don't want to use this type of image, you have other options. I'll click on the source again, and I actually downloaded one, so I'll go to my desktop, and I will click on my actual brick texture, and it replaces the old texture with the new one. Now bear in mind how this image repeats and how the tiling is going to work, because that's going to impact how it's going to look in the final rendering. So sometimes your image file might result in your project looking very tiled, but if you can get a good image or get one from a good website, that can make all the difference. So I'm going to change my sample size back to 3 feet. Oh, sorry, not 3 inches, 3 feet. There we go. So now it should look a little bit more realistic. You can also adjust the position on the X and Y axes if you want. You also want to make sure under Repeat that you have Tile selected. If you don't select Tile, then what'll happen is that single image will appear once on your project. So that's fine if you want it that way, but most of the time you'll want a pattern to continue on. So once we're satisfied with all the image properties, I'll click Done. And you can see in the preview window that the appearance has already changed. And again, you can always change the name and description to whatever you need. You can add in a relief pattern if you have a relief pattern for this specific material. Now in this case I don't, but if you click the arrow next to the relief pattern, then you can choose from a variety of different generic patterns for your relief pattern. Or you can always click the checkbox next to relief pattern and just not have one. And that is what I will do in this case. You can also add a tint to your material. This might be good if you have a glass surface, for instance. But since this is brick, I will leave tint unchecked. So I have now gone through and added in the new pattern for my custom brick material. Now, what might be a little bit easier than creating a material from scratch is using the asset browser. So what you'll do is create a new material by clicking this button on the bottom left, and then I'll right-click to rename it to, let's say, stonework. Okay, so once we have created our new material, if you click on it, you'll see that all the information for it is generic. We have a bunch of different options, but what I actually want to do is replace it with something from the asset browser, which you can also think of as the Autodesk library. Remember, the material browser is everything in our project, while the asset browser is all of Autodesk's preset materials. So what I'll do is go down to stone, and I might want this to actually look like a coarse polished white. So if I double click on this, then it turns my stonework into that coarse polished white. And my stonework has a nice marble patterned texture to it. The relief has already been updated, so our material appearance is ready to go. And now we can edit the properties of it however we need. Alright, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next lesson.